energy efficiency is the wasted energy from electricity production itself. I'm just curious if the measure of the Clean Power Act, that is to clean up the emissions, what is the impact on the energy efficiency, for example, coal plants?
Increasing the efficiency of combustion would get you some distance under the Clean Power Plan. So there's various measurements that are made, and there's options for measurements. I don't know the details, but suffice it to say that you'll be better off with a more efficient than a less efficient coal plant or natural gas power plant under the Clean Power Plan.
So it's a double win then, in a sense, because you're reducing emissions and you're getting more efficient.
Sure. Yes.
What's the term for that? The equivalent of miles per gallon for coal plant?
Decreasing the heat rate.
Yeah.
I can address that. There are 5 building blocks of the Clean Power Plan. One of the 5 is improving the efficiency of coal-fired power plants. 4 other states have put them together in a portfolio to achieve the goals that the administration laid out.
Okay. Other questions?
I did want to say, yeah, go ahead.
Oh, sorry, it's not a different topic.
No, I want to say to Jeff or Jeffrey, I want to be clear, I'm a big fan of what we call all of the above in the United States. I think we need a very big mix of electricity sources in the U.S. that start with efficiency, use as little as we can. I'm a big fan of renewables of all sorts, but I think natural gas has a big role to play. The wind doesn't always shine, the sun doesn't always, the wind doesn't always blow, the sun doesn't always shine. And being able to fire up a gas turbine deals with that. I think electricity storage is very important. We have a large complement of baseload nuclear power in the United States, 100,000 megawatts. That contributes a lot, particularly when you're dealing with intermittent sources like solar and wind. So I'm a big fan of renewables. I'm the president of the American Council on Renewable Energy, but I'm also very much conscious of the fact that we need a very broad mix for security reasons and to deal with climate.
Thank you. Did you have a question as well?
Yeah, I was just curious, Mr. Rothwell, because you promote nuclear energy, and you probably can expect a question on the waste issue. Do you have some sort of an opinion on how the waste should be treated? And from what I understand, there's no real solution to it that is actually secure and has no radioactive effects. There's no long-term solution.
Okay. Right. Okay, so let's look at the waste problem. Okay, all the waste from nuclear power plants is 9, 10 feet high, 3 meter high on a football field. That's
for the whole
it.
world?
No, for the United States. The whole world, it's 4 times that. Okay, so we got 4 football fields of waste. Okay. At the same time, we're trying to carbon capture and storage. Okay, and we're talking about 1 billion tons of carbon dioxide. Now, if nuclear waste is a problem that can't be solved, then CO2 is a problem that's thousands of times larger than that can't be solved. So I grew up, just to give you a little background, before I graduated from Berkeley and taught at Stanford for 27 years, I grew up in the biggest nuclear waste dump in outside of the Soviet Union. Okay?
Nevada.
Hanford, Washington.
Hanford. I graduated from a high school that has the atomic bomb as a mascot. Okay? They're spending $2 billion a year forever to clean up the waste. Okay? So the waste as a fuel rod, and you don't want to dissolve it in acid and create more stuff. So I'm neutral on nuclear energy, okay? But I'm negative on reprocessing, the production of plutonium,
Right.
okay? And it's very difficult to be an economist surrounded by nuclear engineers and have a technology neutral position. But I can do it, you know, waste, the amount of waste that's produced from a nuclear power plant is minimal compared to the amount of CO2 that comes out of a coal plant. So that's why when we say carbon capture and storage, if nuclear waste is a problem, carbon capture and storage is a problem.
So basically my understanding is that nuclear, you think is the best technology option right now for baseload.
No, I said we need them all, okay? We don't want to shut down every couple of months in the United States. We're shutting down a nuclear power plant because of the liberalized markets. We shut them down in Germany. How many people were killed at Fukushima? None. How many people were killed at Bhopal? Bhopal. Where's Bhopal in this?
100,000.
Okay, 3,000 that night. Okay? And people think about Chernobyl as this, you know, mighty accident. How many people were killed overnight at Chernobyl? 30. Okay, maybe over time.
It takes time to develop cancers.
Oh, it takes time to develop cancer, and I live next to the, you know, the waste dump. You know, so I mean, we could debate, I think, well past midnight on which waste is worse.
Okay, thank
so-
you. That's fine, I was actually just curious.
Are there other questions before we close? Yes, over here.
So, one thing you mentioned was quite interesting regarding the interest of private companies or the private sector into these discussions, which you're now mainly involved in the states of development. And so I was just wondering whether this was something sustainable in a way that it will not disappear with a decline in the barrel price. It will not be limited to the US. It will grow in some other countries and around the world. And it could be a way to help the states which don't have much money at the end of the day to pay.
I think the interest of the investment community, the interest of the business community in things overall related to clean energy is big, it's growing, and it's quite sustainable. I think this is going to be, it's a fundamental part of our economy. If you then add the climate change element to that, I think a lot of opportunity is there, and I think a lot of big banks and big pension funds and endowments and sovereign wealth funds, they are waking up to this and putting together entire units of people focused on, and they call it different things: climate investing, clean energy investing, clean tech investing. So yeah, I'm quite convinced that this is big, growing, and will remain a fundamental factor.
Not only in the States, but everywhere in the world.
Well, all around the world. Yeah, I mean, all across Europe. The Chinese invest more each year in clean energy than any other country on the planet. They have a very fast-growing clean energy industry. They lead the world in solar by far. They're catching up very dramatically in wind, advanced vehicles, a whole host of things.
There's a question in the back there. Yes?
So I have a question for you, Wolfgang, on the same subject that we talked about. Don't you think that dismantling costs, because we talked about cost and prices, that dismantling costs should at least be taken into account in the price of electricity, since nowadays it's well, quite underestimated. So what's your opinion on this issue?
J'avais pas compris la question.
Okay, don't you think that in the price of electricity produced by nuclear centrals, that the price should include dismantling costs?
Mais oui.
Well, nowadays it's not the case, right? Like,
No, we just finished a study on decommissioning, the cost of decommissioning and the funding of decommissioning, and it's not decontaminating and dismantling. A nuclear power plant is very well known. It's about €500 million or $500 million or £500 million. The problem is that the cost of waste management is unknown, and it keeps getting ratcheted down so that what used to be low-level waste becomes intermediate waste, and intermediate waste becomes high-level waste, and so the cost, for example, in the United States, because Yucca Mountain was basically terminated with prejudice, all these plants are building their own centralized storage. And so that increases the cost of decommissioning by 300 million. And so then the journalists say, well, the cost of decommissioning has increased by 60% over the last couple of years, and that's because every one of these plants is now has to have a interim storage facility. So yes, they have to, the cost of decommissioning has to be included. But I don't know if you remember the sludge pond that broke in the Tennessee Valley that basically inundated the county. Coal sludge is also a cost that has to be taken into account when you clean up a coal plant. And the chemicals that go into making solar cells aren't actually benign. And so you need to include the environmental consequences of building those solar cells. So where do we stop in terms of what do we include in the costs of all these different generation systems? It sometimes boggles the mind of what has to be included, but I fully agree that the cost of decommissioning is being included. Now, if they force closures, early closures, then they haven't accumulated a fund to pay for those, for example, in Germany. So there's a crisis in Germany over how do you pay for premature closures. And that crisis is developing in the United States as they close plants because they're so-called uncompetitive in these competitive markets when they compete against shale gas, for example.
One last question, really quick, because they're.
Okay.
I think the fact that they're really closing the place. One very quick question.
This very quick question is for Jeffrey Rockwell. You talked a little bit about the nuclear disasters that we've had and how the deaths that have resulted are actually quite marginable. But how do you account for things such as deformities, birth defects, and cancers that have resulted from these disasters actually occurring? You can't totally discount them. And how do you account for that? What do you think the full impact of that is on the environment and on the population in the long term? When you look at things like Chernobyl, where people can't even live there anymore, or Bhopal, where there's loads of deformities and birth defects.
Right, so we got the petrochemical industry producing herbicides and pesticides, and those are leading to deformities. But if you look at the UN literature, those deformities in Chernobyl are not above natural background. The cancers at Chernobyl are not above natural background. There are plenty of people living in the Chernobyl exclusion zone, and they are not dying of cancer. Okay? So You have to go into the literature, go into the UN-based literature, not the journalistic stuff, because, you know, these journalists tend to pick headline-making things, and then you think, oh, this must be the truth, okay? And if it's repeated over and over again, Saddam Hussein has every kind of weapon of mass destruction imaginable, okay? And that was, you know, a myth that was propagated by one of the most respected newspapers in the world.
It's your fault, Iraq War.
Okay, so let's do the research. We're all in the research.
Okay, I think we have to close up.